Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today in our Women's History Month celebration. I'm super excited. We actually have a wonderful guest today, and we've partnered, Capital City Black Nurses Association has partnered with the National Black Nurses Association to bring you this wonderful highlight of history today. We have a super great guest in store for you. My name is Sheree Criner. I'm the Vice President of the Capital City Black Nurses Association, which is a chartered sector of the National Black Nurses Association. So we serve the greater Sacramento area and beyond. I am thrilled to introduce our wonderful guest, Dr. Dawson, today, but I wanted to give you a little history of why we're doing this. March was considered Women's History Week in 1981, and every subsequent president, um, different women along the US history went and spoke to Congress, spoke to the president, say women are being left out of history. We need to make sure that our story is told. So in 1987, the Congress resolved to have March be Women's History Month every subsequent year, and every president since then has agreed to continue that tradition. It's a time to celebrate women's contributions to US history. It's a time to celebrate women's achievements, specifically in a different variety of fields. Unfortunately, African American women are often left out of that conversation, being double minorities, being women and women of color. So today we are righting that type of wrong. We are telling our story. We are telling her story. So I'm excited that all of you are joining us today, and I will introduce our esteemed guest. Today, we have President of the National Black Nurses Association, Dr. Martha A. Dawson. She's an associate professor at the University of Alabama at Birmingham School of Nursing. She earned her bachelor's and master's degree from the University of Alabama School of Nursing. In 2010, she earned her doctorate of nursing practice from Case Western Reserve University, Francis Payne Bolton School of Nursing. Dr. Dawson completed her hospital administration residency at Gadsden Memorial Hospital in North Carolina. Her practice, clinical, and research focus is health systems and nursing leadership. Dr. Dawson is a scholar in the Sparkman Global Health Center at the University of Alabama at Birmingham. She's a fellow in the American College of Healthcare Executives, Robert Wood Johnson Nurse Executive Fellow, and a Johnson & Johnson Wharton Nurse Administrative Fellow. She has served as the principal investigator, project director, and coordinator on health resources and services administration and foundation grants exceeding $2.5 million. In 2019, Dr. Dawson was inducted into the Alabama Nurses Hall of Fame. Let's welcome Dr. Dawson for a little chat today. Hello, Dr. Dawson. How are you doing today?
Hello, I'm doing great. How are you today?
I am great. That is quite an impressive bio, and we haven't even started the conversation yet, Dr. Dawson.
You
Thank you
know,
so much for joining us.
that translates to I'm old, right?
Experience, right?
Okay,
Experience.
I love your wording better. Okay.
All right, Dr. Dawson, thank you so much for joining us for this conversation today. Our aim today is to learn a little bit about you and seek some of your great wisdom. And we're going to also talk a little bit about the history of MBNA and your contributions as well. Let's start out with, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where'd you grow up? What led you to a career of nursing?
Okay, I grew up in Birmingham, Alabama, and I wanted to be a nurse ever since I was a small child. I would say somewhere around about the age of 5 or 6, that kind of got into my mind that I wanted to be a nurse. And I have this wonderful history with that, is because the only nurse that I really knew at the time was the ones that was used to come through the community and give us, vaccine, our immunization. And you see them maybe once every 3 or 4 years. But then I have to think back to General Hospital. General Hospital been around for a long time. And so I used to look at that with my girlfriend when I was small. And they had one nurse on their name, Lucille. And she was, when they would bring on the program, she would always be at the desk. And of course, she knew everyone's business, at the hospital. And so I can remember saying to my dad when he asked me, he said, what do you want to be when you grow up? I told him I wanted to be a nurse. And he asked me, what kind of nurse? I said, I want to be a nurse. And then he said, what kind of nurse? And I said, an RN. Honestly, I had no idea what RN stood for. So he asked me again. And so I'm thinking in my little mind, well, my dad is kind of dumb. I just told him I wanted to be a nurse, and then I told him I want to be an RN, and he's still asking me. And so I didn't know what else to say. So I told him, I said, I want to be the nurse that sit at the desk. And that was it. Uh, but but the truth is that I can remember when my father received a burn on his back, and and when they gave him the cream to place on it, I had no idea what was the name of the cream. But anyway, because I wanted to be a nurse, he told me I had to be the one to put it on. And so I did. And first, I was just a little bit skittish about doing that. But the more I put the cream on, and then the blisters went away, and then I was still putting it on, and eventually I saw the healing. So to me, that was another opportunity for me to stay with that nursing concept. And then my mother used to always take care of people in the neighborhood. And if any of us got hurt, it was my mother who was going to fix us up. We weren't going to the doctor. So I think between my mother and my father, I just really uh, kind of grabbed on to wanting to be a nurse. And so, and I included that into playing with my dolls. So I would take my mother's sewing needles and pins and use those for my syringe to stick my doll, to give them a shot and injections. And I remember begging my mom one Christmas to get me a doll that had all of the little things in it, the little plate, stethoscope, the thermometer, the syringe, and the bandages. But this particular doll also had a cast for the arm and leg that I could put on and take off. So I think I just started practicing my craft at a very young age. And as I continued to grow into elementary and high school, I stayed with the concept of wanting to be a nurse. And every time I thought about something else, I always said, but I can nurse and do that. So for example, I had a lot of people thinking, well, you'll make a very good teacher. And I said, yeah, I can be a nurse and I can teach. So, and at one time I thought maybe I wanted to be an airline stewardess, and I said, oh, well, you can still be a nurse and do that. Then you can take care of the patients that get sick on the plane. So I never did deviate that far from my idea of wanting to become a nurse.
That is amazing. Much like many nurses have their origin story where there was a person they had to take care of or something that encouraged them along the way. I just wanted to take a moment to remind our audience that we will be taking questions from the chat. So you can definitely send us your questions as we go along and we go through. Dr. Dawson, after you became a nurse and you got out there in your career, was it what you expected? Do you have a memorable experience earlier on in your career once you became a nurse?
Well, I have so many what I call some of them are pearl of wisdom, and some of them are just the fight that we as African American and nurses of color sometimes have to go through. So first of all, I would just share a part of my educational journey with you all. Is because again, my goal was I knew I wanted to be a BSN RN. However, one of the things that I was unable to really accomplish was to start out at a 4-year school. So I started out at a 2-year school, and then I decided to transfer to a 4-year university, and that worked out well for me. So for the first 2 years, I went to junior college, and then I was fortunate enough to have an advisor at that junior college that did not try to convince me that I needed to go ahead and do an ADN and then look at a BSN. But she made sure that all of the credits that I took transferred to the university. And now we're talking about back in 1972. They think that's a novel invention now and concept, but it was in place way back then. But it was just that I had to ask for it, and I had to remain very focused that this is what I wanted. Um, and then I can remember, when I did transfer to a university, the university that I graduated from, very small minority of African American nurses were there. As a matter of fact, it was so small that when I moved back to Birmingham, and one of the members of the Birmingham Black Nursing Association, she and I was talking, and she told me what year she graduated. And I said, "Oh, so you were a spring graduate?" She said, "No," because we was on a quarter system then. She said, "No, I graduated in the fall." I said, "Well, I did too. And we graduated the same year." I said, "And we don't even know each other." And
Wow.
her comment was, "Well, Martha, you know they kept us separated back then." So, but that was just evidence. It was a very small class, and yet still, many times we did not get a chance to see the other African American students.
Yeah, that was definitely a challenging time. I'm thinking in, the late 60s and early 70s, the climate around the country with racism and access to higher education. Um, what was your experience with the cultural climate at that time? You mentioned going into a nursing school where you were the minority in a field that was predominantly white at that time and still remains that way today in nursing. What experiences did you have around racism and discrimination, both just generally and also in your nursing career?
Mhm. I would say in school, it was that I knew I had to remain focused. And my goal was always I was going to graduate on time, and I was going to learn as much as I could learn while I was there at school. But I did find myself sometimes having to defend what I would say, defend myself. So I can remember at one point when I really to go into the ICU for one of my senior level course experience, and they were giving students an opportunity to select, where did they want to go. And I was disappointed to see that they were sending a lot of the white students into the ICUs, although they were only juniors, and passing by. I won't speak for everyone else, so I'm going to speak my own story. But they passed me over for that, and I was questioning the faculty member about why she was doing that when they would have another opportunity 2 or 3 more semesters out to get that experience, and I only had one more semester beyond besides the semester we were in, and she really just did not like the fact that I was questioning her. Uh, and I've always felt that I had a right to question anyone. And so there was some things that she said, and she said it loud enough and open enough so that others, students in the audience, could hear what she was saying to me. And I thought that it was disrespectful. And so I didn't call her out on the disrespectful part, but I can remember my mother used to always tell me, your brain and your mouth are not connected. Your mouth speaks before your brain can think. And so I felt my little young self saying to the faculty member, "Excuse me, I believe you have this relationship backwards. I am paying your salary. You're not paying me to be here." Where that came from, I had no idea. But I stood my ground on that. Although I didn't get to move into the ICU, I made a statement that the way she was responding to me were not appropriate and I would not accept it. And so even though that may sound a little bit like I was attacking her, but I think with the voice and what I used and the way I said it to her, I wanted it to resonate that I was paying for my education. She wasn't giving me anything free. And as such, I respected that type of respect in return.
Oh, absolutely. Do you notice any changes in that dynamic now being a faculty member and working with schools of nursing when it comes to students being in that environment today?
I work primarily with graduate students, meaning
Okay.
students that are in the master's program and the doctoral program.
Hmm.
But just because of my role prior to going into faculty, I spent most of my career, and that's what people have to understand. The majority of my early career, I started off as a cardiovascular nurse in an ICU, open heart unit. And back in the days, we took care of everything from a newborn to, I think the oldest patient I took care of was a 90-year-old.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
and and so again, stepping into that environment, I found myself in the minority again. Out of 50 plus some nurses, When I arrived in the unit, there was only 3 African American. I made the fourth, and it took about another 2 years before another one joined us. So again, I found that I had to be able to carry my on, and also it wasn't that I had to prove anything to anyone else, but I had to prove it to myself, and I wasn't going to step back from that. But even at that time, it was like African Americans, they're not good, or Hispanics are not good for working in the ICUs. I see that today, and that's unfortunate. But I did get my start there. I became a charge nurse, left the unit, and then became a nurse manager at that same organization. And then I started back to school because I wanted to become a clinical nurse specialist in cardiovascular disease. And back in the 70s and early 80s, that was the space to be. We did not have nurse practitioners, and if you were going to be a clinical nurse specialist, cardiovascular was just the hot topic of the day, you know. And so, but I really loved taking care of heart patients. I loved everything about heart. So I went back to school, started on that piece. I would say about 70% through before I graduated. Then I got tapped to be a nurse manager. And it was the same thing we hear today sometimes. They look at you as you're one of the strongest nurses on the unit, so you can probably be a good manager. Well, I'm one of those individuals is that I want to know what I'm doing and while I'm doing things. And so after I stepped into the nurse manager role, then I decided that I really did like that. So I stopped, and then I finished the cardiovascular degree, but continued on to get a master's in nursing administration with a focus in hospital administration. And then I did a 10 months residency, hospital residency in Gastonia, North Carolina. Um, and what I loved about my program at that time is that, again, we talk about interprofessional education. Well, I had interprofessional education early in my career because I was taking courses, business courses. I took courses with hospital administration students as well as the nursing component. And when I did the hospital residency program, I made sure that my focus was on areas outside of nursing. So I spent time in finance, food and nutrition, plant operation. Had one of the best experience, I think, if I had to go back and say, what did I think really started my leadership journey and gave me the foundation I needed? I would say that it was that particular hospital administration residency program. Because it did prepare me the way I wanted to be prepared, not just to be perceived as a chief nursing officer or a nurse administrator. I wanted to be perceived as a healthcare administrator, which is why that was one of the first fellowships that I got was the fellowship with the American College of Healthcare Executives.
Well, that's amazing. And thank you for sharing your leadership journey with us. And, I heard that you had education and training and you went outside of the traditional just nursing track to learn the financial components and the healthcare component, which has served you well throughout your career. And here you are today, the president of the National Black Nurses Association. I just want to share with everyone that when we went to the conference in New Orleans and how excited we were to receive you then, and it was just exciting and invigorating, and your
Mhm.
message was very inspiring. And for those of you out there, if you haven't looked into the National Black Nurses Organization, it was organized in 1971 under the leadership of Dr. Lorraine Sams, the former dean and professor at the School of Nursing at Tuskegee University, Tuskegee, Alabama. And it basically came about to help Black nurses influence healthcare services for Black people. But also the other piece was to promote inclusion and in education and nursing leadership roles. In fact, there's a lean-in study right now that talks about African American women in particular still getting offered even management jobs at about 50% less of a rate than males or white women. So it's something that was happening then and is still happening now. But thank goodness for MBNA coming about to help alleviate that issue And as far as NBNA, I'm sorry, over the years, there's been over 300,000 registered nurses, licensed practical nurses or LVNs here in California, nursing students, faculty. There's been over 115 chartered chapters nationwide in over 34 states in the USA, Canada, Eastern Caribbean, and Africa. So it sounds like we're doing well, Dr. Dawson. How'd
We're
you
all doing
find your way
well.
to MBNA?
Well, it was interesting because Dr. Loran Sam, she was the dean of Tuskegee, which is located in Alabama. So remember, I grew up here and I was educated here. However, it took me leaving Alabama to go to North Carolina to find out that there was a Black Nursing Association.
Oh,
So,
wow.
so in 1990, when I was recruited by Duke University, come up and become the director of finance for the nursing department, and also the director of their nursing systems, which included the float pool, the recruitment, the nursing informatics department, as well as that financial piece. Then I met Bertha Williams, who was a nurse manager there, and she is the one who introduced me to NBNA. And the rest is history. So I joined, and I've been an active member ever since. I will say that during my journey, sitting back and just looking at the past presidents, but all of the wonderful leaders that was in NBNA. One of the things that I would say is that, yeah, we have about 4,000 plus members at this time, but 64% of our RN members they have a master's or a higher degree. You're going to find more deans, more chief nursing officers, more entrepreneurs there in MBNA than you are in any other organization, especially when it comes to those African Americans that are making a difference. And that is so important because we are able to not only mentor you, but we also can sponsor you to make sure that you are on the right path. So whatever your career goals are, we have a wonderful mentorship program that we can help align you with a mentor in the space that you want to be mentoring. So whether that's leadership, whether you're a CRNA, whether you are a DNP nurse, whether you're a nurse practitioner, whether you're in mental health, we're going to have someone that we can connect you with. So that's one of the things that I really love about this. And the other thing is because we really accomplish our work through the local chapters, then you have those local individuals that you can network with and begin to connect with. And you're going to find more deans, like I said. If you want to be a dean, you're going to find someone in MBNA that is already a dean, or they've been a dean, or they're on that same pathway with you, and the two of you can travel that journey together. If you want to be a research person in HIV and AIDS, we're going to have someone who can talk to you. If your goal is you want to get into law, we have nurses that are lawyers that can help you to get there. So the thing is that, and we're all about helping people, and we're all about encouraging nurses that, yes, you can do this. So we have many of our members that started out as LPNs, and today they either have their DNP or their PhD. So again, one of my mother wonderful little saying is, it's not where you started, it's where you're in and how did you get there. So I'd say to people all the time, cut your own pathway, decide what it is you want to do. Because after I spent years in senior level positions, from vice presidents to CNOs to VPs of clinical operations, all of the things that I accomplished during my career on the administrative side, I had two goals towards the end of my career. One is I wanted to start my own consulting company. So I did that. I may even start that back. I think I probably need to. And then the other one I wanted to teach. And so now I've been teaching for 13 years. Had no idea I was going to do it that long. But I enjoy it. I love my students. I love seeing them advance their careers. And many of some of the MBNA members have been my students because I teach online. So you don't necessarily have to be in Alabama to be one of my students. You can be in Mississippi or any of those other states, Chicago, Georgia. And so I get a lot of joy out of now seeing my students advance their careers. and encouraging them to go as far as you can go. I love research. Although I don't have a PhD, I absolutely love research. And my reason for that is because it really doesn't benefit the patients nor the profession if someone is doing research and is just sitting in the cabinet collecting dust. So someone have to implement and translate that research into practice.
Mhm.
And so that's one of the part of research that I really support and enjoy is the translation of that research so that it becomes usable information or a usable process or a usable procedure. Because like I said, if you do the research but no one is implementing it, did we really have an impact? And my answer is no. You have to have that impact. And whatever we do as nurses, we need to make sure we have an impact.
Absolutely. Speaking of impact, what do you think has been your greatest impact as president of MBNA? What initiatives are you hanging your hat on for us that you want us to continue to support and stand behind?
You know what? COVID redefined all of our lives. And I have to give a shout out to every one of my chapters. You all have just been absolutely outstanding. I mean, you've been on the front line. Uh, you was there as soon as COVID hit. You started doing education and all of those wonderful things that you do. You know, we have chapters that are giving out 1,000 vaccinations a week now that we moved into that space. We have other chapters that have been on the radio every Saturday, starting from January the 2nd, and they're still doing this, educating again, engaging people. Some are writing grants so that they can be out there working side by side with other providers, whether those providers are physicians or nurse practitioners. Again, trying to make sure that our people have the correct information. And it was so important that our communities hear our voice because there was so much misinformation out there and so much disinformation that we had to pull back and say, no, let us try to clarify some of that and give you the correct information, not so much to persuade you, but to inform you. And that's what our members have been doing. I mean, whether I'm talking California to Chicago, Detroit, Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, Florida, Alabama, Tennessee, Arizona, Arkansas, Louisiana. I could just keep going on and on. Oakland, California, Oregon. So wherever we've had a chapter, you all have been out there doing what we want you to do, what we expected you to do. And you want to know the best thing about that? When the Black
What?
nurses show up, you don't have anybody saying, so who are you? You all was out there before COVID. And I know you're going to be out there after COVID. But if I had one thing that I really want everyone to embrace, and I never had one thing, I got dozens of things. But the one that I will mention is the one that is really at the heart right now with me, and that is the Mini Nurse Academy, the MBNA Mini Nurse Academy that we are trying to start. And our goal is to work with chapters around the country so that they can partner with schools and other youth organizations, whether they're the Boys and Girls Club, whether it's a local choir, whether it's the YMCA, and start introducing our third to sixth grade students, introduce them to nursing as a potential profession. That is so important because, as you stated earlier, I have been in nursing for 44 years and I have not seen the needle moved. Today, there are still, used to be 80%. Now, I think we're somewhere around about 76% are still Caucasian. And then the rest of us kind of split that together in terms of African American making up about 7.8% of the RN population, Hispanics making up about 10%, Asians somewhere around 3%, and Native Americans about 1%. And then you have your Filipino making up maybe about 4%, a small percentage as well. But when you add us all together, we are still barely, 23% or 22% of the total RN population. So for African American, that's 4 million RNs in this country. And so when you're talking about a 7.8%, only about 300 and maybe 8,000 of us are actually African Americans. And I love to use your state as my analogy when I'm saying this, because in the state of California, you all have over 500 RNs. So if I took every Black nurse in the country and sent them to California and sent every other nurse outside of California somewhere else, California would still be 200 and some thousand RNs short.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a wake-up call, that we have to get more of our kids ready to enter into this STEM profession. Because people have to understand that nursing is both an art and a science. And I know that our young children can succeed and be successful, but we are going to have to change our institutional systems. We're going to have to do some things different. And we're going to have to prepare our students a little different as well. Because many people think that just being a nurse, you don't have to have that anatomy, physiology, math, and all those things that you need. But we have to train them early and teach them early and educate them early that this is a great profession. And yes, they can be successful in it. And my motto is that a child educated is a family elevated.
I received
So,
that.
so stay tuned for more about the Mini Nurse Academy.
No, absolutely. Let me see. It looks like we have a question from Sade Vance. She said, in early years as a nurse, what was your best learning experience that you carry with you today?
My best learning experience really was whatever you need to learn, whether it's at the bedside or clinical, whether it's in the leadership realm as a manager, or even if you're at that senior level and you're sitting in the boardroom, is you have to continue to educate yourself, be knowledgeable, uh, but also don't be afraid to speak up. You have to find your voice and you have to be comfortable with your voice. And the other thing that I tell people all the time, including my students, you have to know your values. You have to be able to, every morning, wake up, look yourself in the mirror, and like the person you see. So never let anyone else set your barometer in terms of your integrity, and never let anyone tell you what you cannot learn, because you can learn anything you want to, and you can also own that learning, because once you have knowledge, it's yours and no one can from you.
Absolutely. That's great, great information. Um, let's see, we have another question that says, why do you think it's important to have diversity in leadership and education?
Wow. Let me start with, I don't know which one to start with first, leadership or education. Leadership is everywhere. Let me put it that way. Whether you're in the clinical space or whether you're in the education arena. And from me, I look at it this way. Everything start and stop with the person in that leadership role. If my environment is working well, it's engaging, it's embracing, and I have inclusivity and I have equity amongst my staff, it is probably because the leader has set that tone and made that a priority within their organization. Now, if you notice, I was very deliberate and I did not say diversity, because diversity is so easy for us to achieve. And I'm not so concerned about how diverse your organization is. I want to know how inclusive your organization is. How equitable is your organization? So that if you have a nurse manager that is African American and a Caucasian and a Hispanic, they all been with your organization the same number of years, they have the same education credentials, then my thing is, if I look at their salary, will there be equity in their salary? If I look at how they're being evaluated and promoted and prepared for the next step in their career, will I find equality there? Will they have the same resources? Because it's very easy for me to come up with a fruit salad, real easy. I can do that. It just give me one banana, one orange, one apple, two peaches, and guess what? I have a pretty good fruit salad. And somebody come along and tell you, but you don't have a grape, so you throw a grape in there, but you put the grape at the end of the bowl, at the bottom of the bowl, and no one can see it. So from your dashboard, when you're looking at diversity, you have diversity. But from your integration board, you're not being inclusive and you're not being equitable. So I want to first walk into an organization and I want to see the pattern of that organization. And your diversity will present itself on its own.
Thank you so much for that delineation of the two. I think that's definitely key. Let's see. Have you partnered with other organizations, such as I can,
The
I have to
Filipinos
bear
and
with me
also
on the
the
screen, the Filipino Nurses Association and the Hispanic Nurses
Hispanic.
Association.
Yes,
Yes.
I recognize the acronyms right away. Actually, yes, because there is an association, the National Coalition of Ethnic Minority Nurses is an association that has leadership from all of your minority nursing associations. So that includes your Native Americans, that includes your Filipino nurses, your Hispanics nurses, as well as your African American nurses and your Filipinos. So we meet on a regular basis. We email even almost once a week, okay? Because again, we're out there supporting each other. And again, that's where I give our chapter a shout out. I can go to South Carolina, or I can go up to New England area, or I can come back down towards, New Orleans or Alabama. And what I'm going to find, even if I go out to California, is that, again, our local chapters are also partnering with these individuals. And that include with the American Men's and Nursing. So, and actually, I'm a member of that organization, also the Hispanic Nursing Organization. So again, I'm not just sitting here saying things and I'm not active in these other organizations and participating with them. So by all means, yes, we do. And again, we embrace those relationships. We support each other at the national level as well as at the local level.
That's absolutely amazing that, not only talking about inclusivity, but showing it with your leadership and what all the chapters are doing across the country. Um,
Yes, we have to
let's
practice
see.
what we preach.
Right, there you go. How My question for you is, so you've had this wonderful career that you're still working at. You're leading the future nurses through your education and also through your leadership. How do you balance your career and family life and hobbies and volunteering and mentoring? It seems like that's a lot to balance all the time. What's your secret to balancing everything?
I didn't say that I was balancing all of that. No, well, for me, it's a little different. I'm a very different person from a lot of other individuals. Uh, I'm a single person, so I don't have kids, so I can do a little bit more than other people. And I bring this up because I say to people all the time is that you have to know yourself. You have to know where your priorities are and what things you have to do. Because if I go back about 6 or 7 years, I was fortunate. I had a very good career. And when my mother needed me, I was able to step back, and really spend time with my mother during her last years. And so for me, family is very important. I'm at that point where if I engage with my nephews, engage with my cousins, and I help to raise nieces and nephews and things like that. And then I have all of these nurses that I've adopted over the years. And some of them I adopted as my as my kids before they even became nurses. And somehow I convinced them that they wanted to become a nurse. So I'm always out there pushing for other people to become nurses. But I have goddaughters and godsons as well. And so I enjoy doing those things. Uh, and I would say for some people may be out there looking and thinking and listening to me, I did not, I planned my career very carefully, except for one thing. I never planned it to end up in this president's seat. Uh, that was something that I really came into very late in my career. And I'm going to be honest, very late before I even decided to run for the office. I had been on the board for many years. I enjoyed serving on the board. I had been the first vice president. I have been over the finance committee, the membership committee. I have been the secretary of the organization. Ran one time for treasurer, and I didn't get that. But and I share these things because we can't decide that every path is a straight path. Many times we are going to have to detour in our careers. We're going to have to bend a little bit. We may have to go around the corner. We may have to back up and then step back in. We may have to make a lateral move. But if you look at every opportunity as a learning opportunity, then you don't have to worry about being a failure. Or you don't have to worry about looking back and said, I wish I had done this. So if I stepped into a space, it is mine to own and to learn and to grow in it and to give as much as I can. Then that way, when I pull back and I do my own self-evaluation, I can say, boy, I think I did a pretty good job with that. And my other motto as a leader is, I would never ask a follower to do something that I would not do. I feel that I have to be the example that I want other people to follow. So I work hard because I want people around me to work hard. I give a lot because I want to also receive. I believe in being prepared because once someone give you a title, you are not just representing yourself. You're representing everyone else that title influence. And I felt that way even if I was in practice. You know, when I was a chief nurse executive, when I started my own consulting company, it could not just be about Martha. It had to be about the company that I was consulting with. So as I sit in this seat as the president, I represent every nurse individually and collectively. Whatever I do is going to reflect on Sheree. It's going to reflect on Todd. It's going to reflect on Kendra. It's going to reflect on Marie. So I have to understand that if I misstep in this role, it's not just me I could damage. I would damage MBNA. And that is something I would never want to do because, boy, I think we're one of the greatest organizations in the nation. And the reason I say that is because there are very few organizations that pulls together students, LPN, LVN students, RN student, LVN, LPN, RN nurses, and then RN nurses, and then graduate nurses, doctoral nurses, and then nurses in every space you can think of, whether it's orthopedic, pediatric, neuro, cardiovascular, research, health policy. We have it all. I mean, it is like being at a party and you don't know what you want to taste next because MBNA, we have that talent. And I'm not just saying that because of the president. We just have that talent. When I was asked recently to do an article after I had spoke to for the Academy of Science, Engineering and Medicine, they wanted to take the presentation for that full day and asked us to turn it into an article. And as I started saying, okay, now I'm going to make this more academically oriented now because it's an article, I didn't have to go far. I just went back and started looking at our collaborative community practice model and was able to talk to it from that particular space. When I talk about us being in the community, I can use that model. It was Dr. Linda Burns Bolton and Dr. C. Alicia Georges received a grant to develop that model back in the 90s. And we're still using it. Why? Because it works. When I look at, and I recently had the opportunity, and I hope we're going to try to reprint the opening statement that Dr. Lorianne Sam gave at the very first conference and after MBNA was incorporated. I read that statement and I thought, boy, it is still so timely. I mean, I was getting a little electrical currents in my brains when I was reading, and I thought, the membership has got to read this because it is still so significant today in terms of what they were saying and how they were saying it. So I'm excited about where we're going and where we are and what we're going to continue to be when we grow up. I never stop growing. I kind of feel like I'm going to be a child forever. That way to keep me young, it'll keep me inquisitive and keep me with an open mind where I can also learn.
No, absolutely. We are Black excellence. I tell you, I enjoy being a lifetime member of MBNA. Let's see. DJ Ryder says, as an African American woman, how do you refrain from being labeled as an angry Black woman when defending your values? That's a great one. Thank you, DJ.
Oh, that is a very good one, DJ. And I tell you, I've had to do that even recently when someone was trying to tell me I was angry and my voice was just like it is now. And I told them, I said, no, I am not angry. I really don't have time to get angry. I don't waste my time on getting angry. Just because I'm being very deliberate and very direct does not translate to anger. And I will give you another example that I had as a young leader when I was working at a major university. I mean, my first week there, I was challenged by another director of nursing. At first, I was challenged not by the director, but one of her assistants in an open meeting with almost 50 some people. And she was determined that I was going to answer her question about something. And I told her that I didn't feel that that was the appropriate place and that I would not answer the question there. And I also felt that it was a question to be answered between the two leaders, which was her director and myself. And she was going to continue to try to push me on that. And I finally said to her, I said, I'm not going to repeat myself again because I think you understood me and you heard me the first time. We will not have this conversation. So she talked for about another 2 minutes and I never opened my mouth. And so I guess the other director finally decided she needed to continue on with the meeting. And afterward, I went into the office with her director and we were talking. And it took me only a second to figure out that that particular director was putting on a performance for her people. So a bunch of them had gathered out into the outer office, and she and I had the door closed in her office. And this is a strategy that I've used. I could tell she was trying to see if she could provoke me. And I thought, not going there with you. So her voice would go up. Every time her voice went up, my voice came down. She'd take hers up a little bit more. I would take mine down, almost to the point that she had to ask me what I said. Okay. Then, after we went through that for a period of time, I just simply said to her, we're not getting anywhere with this conversation. So we need to end it. And we will meet and talk again sometime in the future, but not today and not tomorrow, because we both need to step back. So you have to own your own behavior and you have to own who you know you are and don't let someone push you into a space you don't want to be. Uh, and so when I stepped out of her office, I saw all the people there. So I like to think I'm a little bit smart. So I just went on the outside of the door. I didn't leave and I just stood on the outside. And so she came out and she announced her staff. Well, I got her told. And I just leaned back around the day and said, I don't think so, but you have a very nice day. And that's all I said and left. But then I also became smart and thought, I'm going to have to work with this lady. I'm going to have to live with her. But I knew what her next step was going to be. I knew she was going to call the CNO. So I didn't stop. I went right into the CNO office and I said, if you haven't already got a call from X, you're going to get one. Uh, but luckily, I had already told the CNO when she recruited me there. I asked her very deliberately, why are you recruiting me? Is it for my talent or do you need someone Black on your leadership team? If you need someone Black on your leadership team, I am not the person. If it's for my talent, I can come because I will tell you that I will defend myself and I will treat people fairly. And I am not here for you to tell me to intervene on issues related to African Americans, but when there's the same behaviors that are being done by other races, I am not to call their attention to that. That's just not me. So again, you have to know yourself. You have to know what you would stand for. And so I just let them call me an angry Black woman and just say, I'm sorry, you're wrong. Just like you're wrong about many things. Now, just because I'm being direct and just because I'm pointing things out to you and just because I am saying to you, no, this is not the way we're going to do something, doesn't mean that I'm angry. Or because I called you out on a behavior doesn't mean that I'm angry. Now, that means you have to take control of yourself. So I do have some things that are built spiritually within me I don't use profanity, okay? Because profanity really never expresses what I have to say. But I've had a couple of people to say to me, by the time I got through being deliberate with my conversation, I would have felt better if you'd have just cursed me out. And I said, I don't do that. But I think I got my point across. So if you would have felt better if I would been using profanity, that means you understood what I was saying to you without having to use profanity. So we're good. So but just know who you are as a person and stand your ground.
Yeah, Dr. Dawson, it reminds me of what my grandmother used to say is that, knows whose you are and who you are all the time in any situation.
All the time. And then the other thing my mother used to always tell me, and my grandmother is, girl, when you step out this door, remember you're representing me. So it wasn't even about Martha anymore. It was about what Mama was gonna. Mama okay with this,
All
And
right,
even as
looks
a
like
adult, I was here on my shoulder. Yes.
oh, absolutely. It looks like we have one more question. It says, "What do you enjoy most about working with graduate students?"
Graduate students keep me young. They are inquisitive. I love sharing knowledge with graduate students because, again, I think you're at that point in your career that hopefully, as I'm working with graduate students, I'm also able to help them to shape their journey. Uh, and there are times when I would share some of my pearls of wisdom and some of my woes or whatever. Uh, but I really like with graduate students because I'm not teaching you how to take an exam. The program that I'm over has been very successful. Well, I'm not over it anymore, but I was over it prior to becoming the president. And that was the Nursing and Health System Administration program. The same program that I graduated from that I had the honor to go back and lead, and then to lead it into the top 10. And it's been in the top 10 now for about the last 10 years. And we've been ranked as high as number one in amongst all public hospitals and number two amongst all universities. Um, I like the fact that I can teach graduate students how to help them develop themselves, how to think, how to look at issues through the lens of complexity and diversity, and to think outside the box. So leadership is not a direct science. So I have to transform the nurses that come into a leadership program from being used to, I know how much Johnson should be given. Okay. And I know how much should be given if I'm working with an infant, a pediatric, or an adult. Well, guess what? It's not that clean cut when it comes to leading people and influencing people's lives. You know, it can get a little cloudy sometime and a little bit messy. And what leaders don't have to understand is they have to be willing to give so much of themselves. And they truly are the ones that are going to set the tone for the unit or the organization that they're leading. You know, uh, if I'm not doing anything, I can expect for my chapter presidents and the officers and the members to do anything. You know, if you all don't see me out here sharing my time, then
Mm-hmm.
what make you motivated to want to get out and do the same thing? You know, so when I talk about what we've been doing for COVID, I promise you, since COVID hit, I've been having 2 to 3 workshops, seminars, or town hall meetings a week.
Right.
And I feel that that is important because I have 4,000 some people that I have to represent as members, but then I have the entire Black and Brown population that I'm also representing. So I have to take this presidency seat serious in terms of not only from the financial and the clinical aspect, but for the next generation of nurses. And also grooming those individuals who are going to be the leaders after me. You know, I take that so serious that I just don't waste time with not doing what I feel I need to be doing.
Well, I'm happy you said that, Dr. Dawson. I'm going to shoot my shot while we're here. As a young nurse leader myself, going into additional leadership roles, or for other nurse leaders that may be out there like me, you're already in management and you're looking to advance your career. What would you recommend for young nursing leaders that are just starting to build? What would you recommend?
I would say if you know what space you want to be a leader in, you have to lean in and get the experience and everything that you can get. I was looking at that. I was trying to read the question that was just up there before us. And the person was saying, when somebody said you don't have enough experience, then you need to, so what do you do? And they're not giving you an opportunity to grow.
Right.
Once you have your knowledge, it's yours to own. Okay. I did not hesitate, but like I said, I'm gonna remind you now, I was single, so I could do a lot of things that person can't do. So I'm gonna put that out there first. But after I waited for a period of time, if you didn't promote me, I was gonna put myself on the market. I mean, I remember one time when I literally asked my direct supervisor, where did she see me within the organization within the next 3 to 5 years? And this was her response. I really had not thought about that because you were so good.
Wow.
I didn't think we would be able to keep you. Now, I could have left out there just gloating like everything. Saying, boy, that's great. She think I'm so good. She didn't even think I would be able to stay here. I heard that part, but I heard the other part too, is I haven't thought about it. So since she had not thought about it, I thought I need to think about it. So I went back to my office that day and started looking for opportunities. And within 60 days, I was gone. If you think I'm so good you can't keep me, then I need to prove that I'm so good you can't keep me. Then I need to be
I heard
looking.
that.
So and I got a better job and more money.
I understand that. I definitely
So,
understand that.
so you do have to be ready if you have to move to another space and start interviewing for those positions outside of your institution. Don't feel that is a letdown, because you have to be able to promote yourself. And I remember also telling one person organization that I was in, and I was interviewing for a position, and I literally said to them, if I don't get this position, I would not be here to orient the next person. And I wasn't bragging. I was just being very deliberate about that. And when they brought someone in that had less experience than I had, I promise you, I am being totally honest. My first meeting with that person, I told them I'd already accepted another position and I would be leaving
Mm-hmm.
because I wasn't going to stay there. And I was serious. I'm not going to educate someone else to do the job that I applied for when I can do it.
That's so impactful, Dr. Lawson, to give people the courage. Sometimes it's hard to move on, especially if you've been with the institution for a considerable amount of time. But that's definitely good information there. Everyone, I see all the hand claps in the comments.
And the other thing that we have to do sometime is our action may be a wake up call for someone else. To stand back and say, we just lost a good person. Are we going to sit here and lose another good person? And that's something they may not want to happen. But the fact is, if I had just stayed there, trust me, I wasn't going to let the person fail. Now,
Right.
I'm not a revengeful type of person, but I will say that person didn't last a year after I was gone. So,
There's that.
but if I'd been, I would say shit ain't longer than a year, you know. And so I'm not saying that I'm just trying to back. I'm saying, I'm human. So it felt pretty good to say, okay, I wasn't there, so she didn't last even a year. You see, you all made the wrong mistake. You should have selected me.
Well, Dr. Dawson, as we prepare to close out this live today, what do you have? Just what's your last final words of inspiration for not just nursing, but women in nursing, women of color in leadership roles? What is it that you want to leave us with today?
Well, one of the things that I would like to leave you with is saying that my mother used to say, and it is that if you ask for something and you didn't have it and you don't get it, did you lose anything? It take a little time to think about that. But if you ask for it and you didn't have it and you didn't get it, you can't even miss it. Okay. And my next thing is I would say that there's no such thing as a stupid question, except for the one you refuse to ask. And there's no such thing as risk used to take. So if you're going to be looking at moving your career, you're going to have to be comfortable with taking risk. And you also have to look at a no as not a river without a bridge. You have to look at a no as an opportunity to build that bridge to the other side. So to me, one of my most motivating things is when someone tell me that I can't do something. That's when I think it's my God-given right to prove them wrong. So thank you all for inviting me today, and I've enjoyed it and hope that it's been worthwhile.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us. For those of you listening, you can go to nbna.org to check out all the great things that the National Black Nurses Association is doing. If you want to check us out here in California, in Northern California, ccbna.org. We're serving the greater Sacramento area, but we also have Bay Area, and we have San Diego, we have LA. You have lots of choices here on the West Coast as well. Thank you all for joining us. I hope you were inspired and encouraged. This is the best. You heard the president say it today, that we are just excellent across the board here at NBNA. I hope to see more of you joining us. Become a lifetime member. This is a lifetime journey in our careers. Join the elite group of those of us that have signed up for a lifetime. Thank you again, Dr. Dawson, and everyone. Have a great rest of the day.
Okay, thank you all. Thank you.